Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a cinematic disaster that really pushes the boundaries of nature, science, and human survival. We're looking at a wild scenario where the world doesn't end in fire, but in absolute, unforgiving ice. So let's jump right into this high-stakes breakdown of Arctic Armageddon.
Imagine waking up tomorrow and the temperature hasn't just dropped. It's completely plummeted to a deadly negative 75 degrees Celsius, right? It's almost unimaginable. So what actually happens to the world when a catastrophic deep freeze like this sets in, spreading massive sheets of ice across the oceans in just a matter of hours? Ships are frozen mid-voyage, and humanity is suddenly staring down the barrel of a brand new ice age. But you have to ask, what could possibly trigger a global freeze this rapid?
Section 1. The Mega Earthquake Strikes, a 10.2 magnitude disaster.
It all starts with an unprecedented, totally earth-shattering event, a massive 10.2 magnitude earthquake striking at the Reykjanes Ridge. That's roughly 2,000 miles off the southwest coast of Iceland. Now, an earthquake of this sheer magnitude doesn't just shake the ground, it fundamentally fractures the seabed and sends these massive shockwaves tearing across Greenland, Norway, and the UK. But here's the kicker. The shaking isn't actually the real problem. It's what the earthquake leaves behind.
Okay, so under normal conditions, the ocean acts a lot like a giant global conveyor belt. Cold, salty water at the poles sinks to the bottom, and warm water from the equator flows north to replace it, which actively stabilizes our global climate. But this 10.2 earthquake violently altered the seafloor, creating a gargantuan debris field. We're talking about a massive thermal blockage that is 3,800 meters high. This blockage entirely chokes off the ocean's natural thermal circulation. And with the flow of warm water totally stopped, the northern oceans just begin to freeze instantly.
Moving on to Section 2. The submarine mission begins. Deploying the Dallas.
Enter the Dallas. Now, this isn't your standard naval vessel, not by a long shot. The Dallas is a state-of-the-art prototype submarine that's currently undergoing upgrades in Reykjavik. It is literally the only vessel on Earth equipped with the extreme thermal protection required to withstand these plunging, ultra-freezing temperatures without having its hull just crack under the pressure, alongside some really next-generation underwater communications. Led by Captain Price, this highly specialized sub is humanity's absolute only hope of reaching that thermal blockage before the entire globe freezes over.
So Captain Price's initial plan seems incredibly straightforward, at least on paper. Step 1. Navigate precisely to the coordinates of the blockage at 58.68 degrees north and negative 30.66 degrees west. Step 2. Use sonar to scan this monolithic 3,800-meter-high mountain of basaltic rock and debris. And finally, Step 3. Blast it to pieces with heavy torpedoes, clear the volcanic vents, and restart the ocean's warm water currents. Sounds simple, right? Well, as you might guess, in a disaster scenario like this, things rarely go according to plan.
Which brings us to Section 3, Trapped Under the Ice, a Failed Strike.
The Dallas reaches the target and fires 2 torpedoes directly at the blockage. But instead of shattering the rock like they hoped, the explosion destabilizes the entire structure. This causes even more debris to collapse and actually expands the blockage. It's a total disaster. The ocean current completely halts and temperatures plummet so unbelievably fast that an impossibly thick layer of ice rapidly forms right above the submarine, effectively trapping them underwater. And to make matters worse, the violent shockwave from their own torpedoes rips through the submarine, taking both the propulsion system and the sonar completely offline. Now, a terrifying ticking clock begins. The Dallas is basically dead in the water, trapped beneath impenetrable ice, and that power surge? It crippled their oxygen generators. Captain Price and his crew run the numbers and calculate they have roughly 15 hours of breathable air remaining, less than 15 hours before they suffocate in the freezing dark.
Section 4. A heroic surface rescue. Breaking the ice.
Up on the surface, the team desperately needs to blast a hole through that rapidly forming ice ceiling to let the Dallas surface and vent its exhaust. But they can't just use standard missiles because everything is freezing solid. So they turn to the K-bomb. This is a highly specialized weapon classified as the smallest yet most powerful non-nuclear missile in the entire military arsenal. But actually delivering it? Well, that is going to be nearly impossible in a deadly Arctic storm.
To fly the K-bomb directly into the eye of this freezing storm, they have to rely on a helicopter coated in something called thermogel. Dr. Eva Wilson developed this amazing liquid aerogel technology. Basically, it acts as an insulation layer that actively circulates warm propylene glycol just beneath a mesh on the helicopter's body and rotors. It's an incredible piece of engineering, and it's literally the only thing preventing the aircraft from snapping out of the sky in the negative 75-degree air.
Armed with the K-bomb, the helicopter actually makes it to the ice directly above the Dallas. But as they prepare to deploy the explosive, the extreme cold destroys the remote detonator. It's a gut-wrenching moment. Dr. Johnson, knowing the submarine crew will absolutely die without this hole in the ice, volunteers to manually detonate the explosive. With this really somber realization, he tells them, "You can't stop me. Someone has to stay here and blast it." He makes the ultimate sacrifice, manually triggering the K-bomb to crack the ice and save the Dallas.
Section 5. The Final Explosive Gamble. One Last Chance.
Dr. Johnson's sacrifice works, and the Dallas briefly surfaces to take on crucial personnel, including the leading geologist, Dr. Woods. But as they submerge to make a second attempt on the blockage, they are just hit with rapid-fire disasters. First, sailing blind without full sonar, they crash right into a dense, submerged iceberg field. Then, as they try to line up a shot, their primary torpedo tube jams completely solid because the outer hatch is frozen shut. And if that wasn't enough, the submarine literally gets impaled by a massive spike of ice, pinning them in place. In a desperate move, they actually have to send a brave diver outside into the freezing depths wearing a thermogel suit just to cut the submarine free with a blowtorch. Talk about a rough day at work.
Once they're finally free, they face the ultimate paradox of this entire mission. They are down to a single functioning torpedo, and they already know that shooting the debris field directly only makes it bigger and stronger. So you have to ask yourself, how do you destroy an indestructible blockage when your weapons only seem to feed it?
This is where the geologist, Dr. Woods, comes up with an insanely brilliant, high-risk gamble. The plan? Don't hit the debris at all. Step 1. They reprogram their final torpedo to target the Charlie Gibbs fracture zone, which is a highly volatile tectonic fault line adjacent to the blockage. Step 2. Fire their very last torpedo directly into that trench. Step 3. The explosion should theoretically trigger a secondary, localized earthquake, forcing the tectonic plates to shift and swallow the debris field entirely. It is just a breathtaking maneuver.
So they lock in the coordinates, they fire their last torpedo. The entire crew holds their breath as it travels through the water and strikes the fault line perfectly. But absolutely nothing happens. You heard that right. The torpedo is a dud. The detonator failed upon impact.
With literally no weapons left, the crew resorts to a downright suicidal final solution. Because, when all else fails, why not just use a multi-billion-dollar nuclear submarine as a battering ram? Captain Price orders the Dallas to move at full speed and deliberately ram a towering iceberg situated directly above the dud torpedo. The violent collision rips through the submarine's hull and they start taking on water, but it works. The impact causes massive boulders of ice and rock to shear off and plummet to the ocean floor, completely crushing the dead torpedo. That physical impact forces the detonation, and the massive underwater explosion successfully triggers the secondary earthquake.
Section 6. The world unfreezes. Circulation restarts.
The violent tectonic shift caused by that secondary earthquake forcefully shatters and swallows the thermal blockage. On the sonar screens, the crew watches in absolute awe as the massive debris field just clears away. Instantly, the warm ocean currents from the equator rush back into the northern hemisphere. The ocean circulation restarts. The sonar sensors ping with rising temperatures, going from -75 back up to survivable levels. Against all odds and with a profound sense of relief, the crippled Dallas sets a course for home, having successfully saved the planet from an icy doom.
Now, while Arctic Armageddon is a completely adrenaline-fueled sci-fi thriller, it actually leans on a very real, very vital mechanism. Our ocean's thermal circulation genuinely dictates our global climate. So, it leaves us with a pretty chilling thought to end on today. If the ocean's complex circulation actually stopped tomorrow due to a massive seismic event, how much time would humanity really have before the ice closed in? Well, thanks for joining me on this explainer. Until next time, keep a close eye on the thermostat.